When I was 20, I was downtown and going to a show in Rock Island. And it showed this fighter plane making an attack, and I said, that's what I want to do. The next morning, I got up and went to Chicago. I had a train that went to Chicago in the morning, come back in the afternoon. 3 days later, I was signed up and accepted to be a Navy fighter pilot.
For World War II veteran Herbert Wood, his new job would take him around the world on many adventures. He recalls learning how to fly solo for the first time.
This big airplane, I looked at it, it weighed 7 tons. I looked at that thing and I said, I had to fly it. But there's no cockpit for somebody in there to teach you how to fly it. So I sat in it, I memorized everything. I sat in it so I felt comfortable, So then there was the day, okay, you're up, Woody. I taxied out, and they had people out there in radio contact with us. Now, if this is the runway and I pull up and I'm stopped right here, I would roll forward maybe 10 feet, and I'd push a lever right here. That lever would lock. And remember, here's the engine, here's the wings, and here's the tail. It would lock the tail wheel so it was straight. And we're sitting down, 2 wheels up here, the front, the landing gear wheel, and back here the tail wheel. Now you couldn't move it this way. So you just added throttle, and you knew you had a hold of a lot, really and truly, first time. And I was on the rudders, and the torque wants to take you off this way alone. So I had a lot of right rudder on it. And just the torque of the engine is so powerful, it would take you to the left. You'd correct that by pushing the right rudder on and having the wind hit the tail to hold you this way. So it took off, and once you got airborne and hit that wheel, then you were really flying.
Once he learned how to maneuver the aircraft, it wasn't long before Wood found himself in the middle of the war.
There were 36 fighter pilots on board the carriers. Then there came the fighter bombers, about the same amount. And then came the torpedo bombers. And then came the dive bombers. There'd be 3,000 men on board that ship. Well, I was kind of different. You shoot at me, I shoot you back. And that's it. And that's exactly what I did. When they started shooting me, I was pissed off. So I kicked both chargers like that. And I knew I had 2,400 rounds of ammunition. And I meant business. I come right on down, and I blew the hell out of everything that was down there, what I was supposed to do. That was my job. When we got back to the carrier, you could tell it, the Associated Press was on board. And they were taking this, and as soon as we'd walk in the door, I was handed a drink. I mean, from the outside catwalk back, just got out of the airplane, had just been shot at and been shooting. They handed you a drink, and that's no lie, and you drank it to get you calmed down. So you could talk, because it was pretty high, But you'd been through some very exciting highs. When you get shot at, and boy, your life is on the line, girl. It really is. And you smile because you got through okay.
Another moment during the war that made Wood smile was when a lady walked aboard ship. The sight of a woman never seemed so powerful until these years in his life.
No girls. We docked in the Philippine Islands, and some guy came on with a nurse, and he opened that door. We're in the fighter room. We're sitting here, because it's air conditioned there. It's hotter than hell down in the Philippine Islands. And we were in the fighter, door opened, and then this way, he said, and this is the F-888's fighter squadron. The guys all looked up. You could have heard a pin drop. I'm serious. That was a woman we hadn't seen for months. Unbelievable. She was brought in, and this guy, the officer, was showing her the different things on board the carrier. When that door closed, off the ceiling went our We had things that we formed that slid out from underneath the instrument panel, and in there was your navigation, latitude, longitude. Here's where we are. Here's where the island is. This is going to strike. Here's the distance. They went to the top of the ceiling. That's what it was. Now, if you haven't seen a girl for that long, by God, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you if you're not excited. That is the truth, so help me God. She was with somebody, because we were in the Philippine Islands, she had to be a nurse as far as I could see. And they had opened that door. When they closed that door, me and all the rest of the guys went out the back side, and on the back side of this carrier, see there's places here you can walk, overhanging the ocean, running all the way through that back down so we get one more look. And we're just looking. The power of a woman you'll never believe, boy. They got it.
I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. Most kids said, oh, they knew they wanted to go to college, but I didn't. And I thought, oh, I'm going in the Air Force. I'm going to fly. You always see the glamorous part, but it was more just feeling good about helping. I just felt that this was something I wanted to do. My family my dad was in the Army, and he was in the Second World War overseas, and he got injured. My uncle was in the Navy, and he got injured, and so they would often talk about being overseas, and so I thought, what part could I be? How could I help?
Korean veteran Joyce Steingraber says joining the Air Force seemed the best way to do her part. The shy young woman says the experience forced her to come out of her shell. She compares herself to Goldie Hawn in the movie Private Benjamin, always getting herself into a bit of mischief.
I had to have a choice between cooking school, which I thought, oh my God, please, I don't like to eat and I don't like to cook, so please don't send me there. But the other choice was, they called it administrative specialist school, and that's where I ended up going. But a funny thing about that was, when I got to the class the first day, I raised my hand and I said to the sergeant, Sergeant, I don't know how to say this, but I don't know if I should be here or not, because I got kicked out of typing school because she said, you'll never learn to type. So he got right in my face and said, Airman, you'll learn to type because you won't want to be around me. And it was true. He was quite mean. So that's what I was.
Steingraber says the job involved processing airmen who were going overseas. She says while sending them off was hard, she always tried to put a smile on their face before they left.
Each guy that would come and sit, we'd do our paperwork, but I just tried to make them feel comfortable, and I tried to joke with them and, tell them, I know this would be hard for you to do, but somebody needs to be there, and I know you'll do a good job. I just tried to make them feel comfortable, and always when they left and the next one came up, they were always laughing because I'm a joker.
Steingraber says there were many moments during her time in the Air Force that resulted in laughter. She remembers the bright flashing lights that did not mean anything besides, hey, cutie.
Say, hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about
One of the funniest, if you want to say funny things, RTI, she's your leader. She was very strict, and it was very hot. We didn't have air conditioning, so we had the windows open, and right away we noticed that the barracks across from us, there were guys in there. So every night when everybody went to sleep, my roommate and I would get our flashlight out, flash our flashlights on and off, and then somebody over there. And then we thought later on, oh boy, if we ever got caught
flashing your light?
Yeah.
The boys came over to see you?
No, no, oh no, you weren't allowed to. No, they just flashed their lights. We don't, what did it mean? It just meant, hey, you're seeing a guy, and he'd probably saying, hey, there's girls over there. I don't know. There were about 200 guys to every girl, and I never had a date in high school. Boys didn't like me because I was too shy. But when I got in there, are you kidding? They'd fall at your feet every day. No, it was fun.
I enlisted in the Army. I actually went through a college op program, they called it at the time. I graduated from Loris in Dubuque, and as a college graduate, I was guaranteed a slot in OCS school, Infantry Officer School. Not guaranteed to make it, but guaranteed a slot. And there was 36 of us that joined that program about the same time. I wanted to be a Marine, but I'm colorblind, so they wouldn't take me as an officer. So the recruiter said my next bet was an Army Ranger, so 5 days after graduation, I was in the Army. I didn't wait around. I should have taken the summer off.
Vietnam veteran Bob Conradi says at the time he was anxious to get involved, and it wasn't long before the platoon leader found himself in the jungles of Vietnam. He recalls one day when a four-legged feline followed his men.
One afternoon, we had a tiger follow us, and we had a big security out. We could see because the elephant grass wasn't too bad, and you could see them off to the side. And we needed permission to shoot anything like that. I went on an elephant hunt one day, but anyway, we needed permission to shoot something like that, so we called it in. And the company commander says, reverse direction. And I says, why? I need to go to point B. He says, they found out that these tigers follow platoon because they know someone up ahead is waiting for them, and there's an ambush and a chance to get a meal. So the tiger followed us as an omen, so we went the other way. So I never did find out what happened. But they learned quick.
While Conradi faced many scary moments during the war, there were brighter times as well. Times when he could laugh, blow off some steam, or be reminded to find joy in the simple things. He recalls one evening where roasting pork was that simple pleasure, although it was also a danger. Conradi says, much to his surprise, a few of his men bought a pig from one of the villages in the hopes of eating well that night. He says he told them they could not roast it on his watch, for fear a fire would alert the enemy of their whereabouts. But because of their persistence, he gave in. And what followed was a night he says he'll never forget.
I had all young guys, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. So they said, we really want to roast this pig, so they convinced me to do it. So we went on top of the hill, and you see the movie Dances with Wolves? He was at that fire, head-high fire. That's what we built. It was at least head-high. So we built this huge roaring fire, top of the mountain, take the pig and we roasted, and we spent the whole night just dancing and hooping and hollering and ate that pig, and we didn't get shelled. I don't know why we were lucky, but that was one of the best times over there. We had a really good time.
However, good moments like that were short-lived. Just 3 months into his tour, Conradi was wounded in the well-known Battle of Ia Drang. Conradi says several of his men put him on a poncho and carried him to safety, setting him down to fight off the enemy along the way. He says while he was airlifted to a field hospital, they had to continue fighting, sacrificing their lives. The many years of guilt he felt from leaving his platoon behind inspired Conradi to travel with the men of that current platoon to Iraq, where he found himself in combat once again. He wrote about his experiences in the Quad City Times after he returned.
We would get in the Humvees, go on a patrol anywhere from 4 hours to 9-hour patrol, and then we'd come back to, they had trailers. We'd come back to the trailer, and the lieutenant had me sleep with him so I wouldn't be alone. He slept on the floor, I slept in his bed. So I slept with the lieutenant. We'd set the alarm anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours out. We'd try to go to sleep. We'd either eat, go to sleep, try to email home, or get changed, get cleaned up. That was the only choices you had. You'd set your alarm because the next patrol is coming. And some of them were like only 4 hours out. So all we did, it was almost like Vietnam not changing clothes. We'd go to bed in our clothes if we had a 4-hour patrol. So we'd set the alarm, go to bed, try to get some sleep. 4 hours are up, you go right back out. We did this 24 hours a day. The whole week I was there. Very, very little downtime. And what would get me is I had my camera and they allowed me to take pictures, but they wouldn't let me take pictures of the GPS system because they had bodies on there, Iraqi bodies and IEDs, right, as icons on the screen. And we'd come to these alleys, and we were going down one, and I was going to take a picture. He said, "You can't take this." And he said, "Those are the IED icons." And I counted 12 of them down this alley. And I said, "Why are we going, look at that, there's 12 of them." He said, "No problem, we'll go fast enough, they'll never have time to set them off." They kind of blew it off. And I said, "Another thing, you locked the door when I got in. How am I going to get out?" He said, "We locked the door for your protection. If something happens, they can't come in and get you, and we should have time to come and get you out." I said, "I feel like you're locking me in a coffin." And they just laughed. They said, "No, you're protected that way." And that's kind of how they felt. They're in this Humvee, or they're in this Bradley, and they're protected. To me, I'm locked in, and I didn't like it. So all we did was patrol the whole week I was there. And I really lucked out. We got in an ambush one afternoon, and they picked one Humvee to zero in on. I always rode in the last Humvee, the passenger back seat, so the cavalry knew where I was. So if this Humvee got in trouble, they could come and get me out. So we got ambushed, and the machine gunner picked one Humvee to shoot at, and that was the one I was in. And we could see the tracers coming at us. And I had my camera, but I got so scared I wasn't even taking pictures because I thought, this is it, they're going to get us. But he never did hit the Humvee. So we get out of there, and I asked the lieutenant, why didn't we, because I'm looking up at the turret gunners, why isn't he shooting back? So we get about a half a mile away, we pull off, he says, "Is Conradi okay?" "Yeah." "Is the Humvee okay?" Yeah, he missed us. So I said, "Why didn't we shoot back?" He says, "Rules of engagement. Our turret gun is a higher caliber than their gun, so we couldn't return fire." He says, "Now we could have fired with our M16s, but that would mean opening the doors, taking a chance on a ricochet." So he said, "We just strategically go away, regroup, and they'll go back and try to find them." I said, "Man, that's not what we did in Vietnam." So that was one of the political things I ran into. And like I said, we patrolled the whole time, and we still had about a day and a half left. We were crossing this median, and all of a sudden I thought I got hit with sledgehammers on the bottom of my feet, and we hit a small IED. Thank God it was a dud, and it blew out the tire right underneath me. So we go back and get the tire changed, go right back on patrol, and we get back after that patrol, and we set the alarm, get ready to go to sleep, and I go to the restroom and thinking, that's the second strike. 3 strikes and I'm out. I really had the feeling that I wasn't going to come back. I thought, man, I got a family at home, I got grandkids, I promised them I wouldn't go into combat. And when I was writing for the Times, I purposely slowed down when I would send it so nobody at home knew I was in combat yet. And I didn't want my family to know until I could get a hold of them. So I'm thinking, I got 2 strikes, the third one I'm not going to make it. And I tried to find a graceful way out. How can I get sick? Can I say my legs hurt? Can I say my PTSD is acting up? How can I not go back out on patrol? Because I didn't think I was going to make it back. So I finally decided I couldn't do that, and I went out and nothing happened. But the Cav pulled me early, because I had trouble getting in. I got hung up in Kuwait. So the Cav pulled me a day early. So this is like 7 o'clock at night. We're sitting out front. The chaplain comes by. He says, "Oh, the Cav told me you're leaving. I came by to congratulate you for your embedment," and all that crap. So we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, they're leaving about 7:30. A driver comes to me about 7, and they take me back so I can go back to Germany. And I found out when I got home that patrol that went out, that Humvee and that same seat where I was sitting in got hit with a bigger IED. And both guys on that side ended up with concussions. They had ear problems. They're bleeding out of their eyes and their ears and nose. And if I had gone out of patrol, I would have been sitting there. So I felt really fortunate. That was my 3rd strike.
Honestly, I was in high school and I was just walking down the hallway and they had a recruiter there. And I was like, I just got done with football and I didn't know what team I could join. And then I was like, I should just join the Army. So I walked to the recruiter and I asked him where I could sign up. And he's like, "Well, how old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 17. He's like, "Well, we got to get a waiver." So we had to go ask my mom. And that was a whole process in itself. But I don't know, I just kind of felt, at the time, it was in 2004, the Iraq War was kicking off and Afghanistan was in effect. And so I just felt like I needed to go do my part. And I still wanted to go to school, but I still wanted to do the Army, so I joined the Guard.
Iraq veteran Michael Leal says he traveled with the National Guard for several years before he was sent on a deployment to Afghanistan.
My primary job in the Army is a combat engineer. We do counter mobility, mobility, and survivability is like our three main focuses. But basically, if there's an obstacle in the way of the Army, we get it out of the way. Also, mainly working with explosives and things like that. So that was my job. When I went to Afghanistan, we did security missions, patrols, and we also did route clearance. So, which is like we would drive down the road looking for improvised explosive devices and clear those out of the roadway.
While his job came with a certain amount of danger, one day while checking for roadside bombs in the searing heat of Iraq, Leal found something that actually brought a smile to his face.
We were driving down this road, and me and my buddy Bowman were walking down the road looking for bombs, like on foot. So I'm just checking the road, and I was like, it's really hot out, and I was like, man, I really wish there was ice cream. I want some ice cream right now. And so we walked like another mile or so, and like all of a sudden we see this cart getting pushed by an Afghani guy, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I had never seen an ice cream cart in my life. And sure enough, this ice cream cart comes up, and I call back on the radio. I was like, Convoy Holt, we're checking something out, like made it sound like we were doing something important. And I was like, Bowman, you got any cash on you? And he's like, yeah. So we were like, we bartered with him, and my truck was right behind us about 150 meters or so. So I just grabbed a bunch of ice cream sandwiches and gave the guy $5 and ran back there. And I was like, got on the radio again. I'm like, all clear. And it was amazing. What are the odds, that, you would have an ice cream guy like about 10 minutes after I just said it. So.
Leal says although his experience in the National Guard has come with highs and lows, it's what has shaped him into who he is today.
I'd say it's just part of my identity. You can ask any of my friends or anybody, and I'm always telling an Army story of some sort. I look forward to going to my 2 weeks in the summer and get to run around in the woods and have fun. And I don't know, I just think it's a part of me. And my whole life I've always been interested in the military, and to be a part of that team and to do it, it's part of me now. I'm a soldier, I do this. So for me, yeah, it's kind of like my hobby, my life. It's been good to me.
To learn more about these veterans or St. Ambrose University's Office of Veterans Recruitment and Services, visit www.sau.edu.